All right, all right. Good morning. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to the Master Motivation Podcast. Today we have a special edition, or round two, as we said. We tried this a couple weeks ago, and internet was not cooperating, but here we are. We're back again, and I'm excited to have Mr. John Graydon, who is a world champion kickboxer and coach. He's a protege of martial arts legend Joe Louis. John Graydon led the martial arts into modern era by creating the first professional association, trade journal, and instructor certification program. He was first called the martial arts visionary by MA Success editor John Corcoran and was profiled on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, a guest on the Dr. Oz show, and named the martial arts teacher of teachers on the cover of Martial Arts World magazine. So, good morning, sir, and happy to have you.
Thank you. You read that just like I wrote it for you. Appreciate
I,
that.
it, Perfect, perfect, right? Hey, listen, I know you have a couple topics that you want to get to today, and I'm excited to talk about it. Just, again, really happy to have you on the show and introduce you to the audience. Many of you in the martial arts industry have heard this name for many, many years, and you've made a tremendous impact on the martial arts industry. Can you just give us, kind of a brief background of, who you are, where you came from, and maybe how you even got started in martial arts?
It's very interesting. Martial artists, if you're a career martial arts instructor, odds are you have a similar background that we all share. Typically, that means that at some point in your youth, there was some intimidation, some feeling of being out of control and not able to mitigate the stress and the intimidation. In my house, there was a lot of yelling and a lot of hitting. There were bullies in the neighborhood, that kind of thing. So uh, you grow up with this sense of being out of control. And for me, that changed when my dad took my brothers and I to see this movie called The Five Fingers of Death. And it was the first chop socky movie in the 1970s that led the kung fu boom in films. And I knew this was a terrible film, but these guys broke every rule of fighting. They would fly through the air and do these kicks. And, I was raised that you never kick a man when he's down. You never, kick a man in the groin. They didn't kick him in the groin. They ripped his balls out. It's unbelievable. So I was sitting there in the theater thinking, oh, man, that is amazing. I have to have this power. If these little guys can beat big guys and 20 different guys, well, I can do that too. So the next Monday, I started calling all the, I went to the yellow pages, called all the karate schools in the area. Most of them were actually quite rude because I was a kid calling. But one school invited me to come in and watch a class. And my dad, who was actually very interested in it, took my brothers and I to see a class at the Florida Karate Academy. And we're sitting in the bleachers and we're watching the next class start, which is the brown and black belt class. But there was a blue belt 16, 15-year-old guy my age, kind of sort of maybe a year older. He walked out to the center of the floor, and there was a pole in the middle of the floor with padding around it, support pole that you
Mm-hmm.
pad for safety. And he hit that thing with the back leg round kick, a series of them, and the whole room shook. I just, whoa. I mean, I really had to have it. So at the end of class, the instructor comes over and tells my dad it's $25 a month with a 12-month contract. My dad immediately, no way. When we stormed out of there, right? Because I quit football after one practice and he wasn't going to sign a contract. So I get in the car and I express my frustration. Pow, he smacks me in the head. So I just stared straight ahead like many teens do when they're intimidated, just shut down. So I figured that was done. And about a month later, and I'd given up on this just dream, the phone rang. In those days, you actually ran in and answered it. Hello?
Right.
Hi, this is Debbie Bone from the Florida Karate Academy. I'm just calling to see if you're still interested in training. Oh, I'd love to, but my parents won't sign a contract. She said, well, you sound very interested. So I tell you what, how about if you come in and clean the dojo for your lessons? I'll be there tomorrow. And I was. And that phone call changed my life.
That's amazing.
It's really, really powerful. From that moment on, I knew I was going to do this for the rest of my life. That was in 1974. Do the math. And the effect that it's had, but God's grace, the influence I've been able to have and help this the martial arts world grow and hopefully improve and continue to do that. It's just a true blessing, And it's one of those things that it could only happen in America. In 1974, that was clearly the case because in the 80s, I traveled all through Europe as a fighter and a coach. And the one refrain I heard over and over again, you guys are so lucky you can just open a business, open a school. And so it was unique to our country at the time, which we may touch on a little bit later because of
Hmm.
course I have opinions on everything. So anyway, that's how I got going, and I cleaned that school every day. And what happened was, because I was there, the instructor would come in and he would make me his training partner. And it wasn't Walt Bone; it was Hank Farah. So we would, hold the targets and do drills and things. So I was getting really, really good because I'm training with the instructor in the afternoons, and I was totally dedicated. Then eventually he started to come by my house and pick me up so I wouldn't have to ride my bike 3 miles to get there. And he pulls up in his sports car every afternoon. I just thought I was the coolest guy in the world. And he was a very charismatic instructor. It was really a great time. So that's how I got involved in the martial arts, and I've been a complete addict ever since.
You know, I can't tell you how many martial artists, and I'm sure you've talked to, thousands, right? And you hear this story over and over and over that a lot of us that really succeed in the martial arts, at some point, we cleaned the school and traded for lessons. I did the same thing. I know you talked with Mr. Mark Cox on his podcast as well. Same thing. A lot of us, and there's something about that dedication and the commitment. I mean, if we're willing to put ourselves in that position to do that, we must really love what we're doing, or we have this connection based on that dedication just from the very very beginning. So it's just interesting to hear that story being told several times, in the same manner.
There's a downside to this, and this is really important. When you are in a position of feeling intimidated, bullied, and out of control, and you are around an instructor, a black belt instructor, who must know all. He's a black belt. He's a master martial artist. He must know all. Especially in the 70s and 80s, there was that implication of wisdom that came with a black belt. Miyagi definitely perpetuated that from the 70s kung fu films, the Bruce Lee stuff. So you tend to take their word, their example as the gospel.
Hmm.
And that becomes your belief system very quickly. And it can usurp really good belief systems that you have. Uh, it, so there is a danger there. And with martial artists, understand this. This is why I created the martial arts teachers certification program in 1993. Just because you're a black belt doesn't mean you're wiser. It doesn't mean you're a good teacher. It doesn't mean you're anything other than a guy who's earned a black belt or girl. Additional advanced education is necessary to become a good teacher. Typically, we come up through the ranks adopting the dogma and belief system of that instructor. And my father was in the Korean War. And when we went into that school, there was an American flag and a Korean flag. He did not like that at all. He didn't prevent me from going to class about it, but he just noted that, that he was not happy with it. And I can completely understand that. I mean, I don't understand. I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't want to go down that road. So you go from this place of being out of control, intimidated, to within a year, I was a brown belt, and I was actually blue belt. When you earn your blue belt, students had to call you Mister. So
Hmm.
I went from intimidated kid to being Mr. Graydon. I had a day job at a restaurant where I was a busboy. Graydon, clean off number 2. That was during the day. At night, it was, Mr. Graydon, would you please talk to my son Joey? He's having trouble in school and he looks up to you so much. Which one do you think was the attractive path for me? Of course. And that led to a prelude of an attitude from my dude. It created a monster in many ways. And it was not healthy. It was not healthy because there was no real guidance about how to deal with that stuff. It was pop culture, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There was a lot of drug abuse in the school. My instructor died smuggling pot into America from Colombia in a plane where he
Oh,
crashed and burned to death. They couldn't recognize him from his teeth. He was burned up so bad. December 16th, 1982.
wow.
Uh, Craziness. So what through the years I've been able to do, and it frustrates the heck out of a lot of these guys. Step back, and look at the real picture. What is really going on here? Is this blind acceptance of traditional dogma? Because here, it, our origins come from Okinawa, Japan, China, Korea, all Asian countries. If it came from Joey Budafuku in Brooklyn, New York, he comes to you and says, "Oh, I've developed this fighting system," and he shows you exactly the Wei Chi Ru fighting system. Do you think anyone would have paid any attention to? Do you think he would have been laughed out of the room? I guarantee you he would. But if Master Wu says it, ooh, it must be true. So that's a real, I mean, I don't buy into the superiority of the tradition. I don't buy into looking backwards. I always try to look forward and take the martial arts forward. And that's frustrating for some people because that dogma has been their belief system for decades at times. But we're seeing the younger guys come up through the ranks and they're no longer wearing gi tops, which is smart. They're no longer doing silly karate stuff where you cross your hands and you step forward and then you do a block. And blocks must be done with power. Why? Only against a guy who holds his hand out for you. You think that somebody who's just that you're gonna have time to cross your hands and block them. But the master says it. The black belt instructor says it. It must be true. So I've been fighting that for years, trying to improve the martial arts by focusing on what works for the student. Most schools are style centric. We are an Okinawan karate school and we do it just like they did in Okinawa. Why do I want to do that? 70 years ago on a hillside, some scholars put together some. And if you look at the bunkai now, we're starting to see the films from the JKA. It's just silly. I mean, they're worse than the kung fu fight scenes. So I've been working initially with Pro Star and now Empower Kickboxing. It is a martial arts white belt to black belt system that students can master faster. I don't understand why it takes 4 years to earn a black belt. I mean, I can go to college and get a degree faster than I can get a black belt in some schools. And then there's this, I've got a big email list of martial arts school owners and instructors. And I'll send out an email that says something to that degree. And my response, I can guarantee the response is going to be, "Oh, you're a disgrace to the martial arts, big dojo." I would beg to differ. I think
Well,
that is pretty good.
let's switch gears for just a second because I want to get into maybe just a little bit more history about you. And you talked about competition a little bit. You got involved in competition and you traveled the world. Can you talk a little bit about your experience as a competitor?
My instructor was a top kata guy and point fighter, and he believed deeply in both. And he was really good at both, and he was a great guy, very charismatic. He was just a hippie, so he was into drugs and things like that. But which opened the door for me for very bad habits for a long time, a hedonistic lifestyle. So I did the kata thing. I won a lot more trophies in kata than I did fighting. I was the U.S. Open Korean Forms champion sometime in the 80s. And then I was named to the WACA World Champion teams. We fought in London, which was a blast. I barely lost the world title fight there. And many people thought I got ripped off, but I wouldn't say that. That I'll hold grudges from 1984. But we won as a team. So that's the world kickboxing champion title as a teammate. And then in Berlin and Munich and all over, we did a 10-day tour of Italy that was fantastic. It was Ray McCallum, Troy Dorsey, Joe Lewis. I mean, we just had a blast. So it was like being a rock star. We were in a 3 Mercedes convoy driving through the mountains of Italy. And then we'd land in a town like Palermo. And then we'd, walk around in the afternoon. And then at night, we'd go in and fight. And then we go to a big party afterwards. It was a lot of fun. I remember one time we got this in Milano with this big cup that we won. And then Raymond filled it up with beer and passed it around. Great memories. I was 24 years old. I have the diary from that. I just write the diary every day. One day I'll publish it. So that was a blast. I mean, it was. Here's something really interesting and coincidental. On my Facebook memories thingy, a picture appeared of myself, John Longstreet, Jerry Rome, and I think Troy Dorsey. I'm not entirely sure. At Checkpoint Charlie in West Berlin, getting ready to go over to the east side. And we walked in that room. And so the picture's there, right? We walked into the room where you show your passports and all this stuff. And the East Germans were just screaming at this guy, ripping him to pieces. I mean, we didn't understand German, but they let us through. But I had a camera, and a truck of German, East German soldiers drove by, and they yelled at us. The whole team turned around and went back to the west, except for John Longstreet and I. So I mean, that was insane. So yesterday, that the photo appears on my Facebook yesterday. The same day, my wife and I are at a mall that we've never been to before. We turn the corner, and it's the Berlin Wall Museum, and it's all the photo. Everything was exactly like I stood under that sign. And a
Mm.
good friend of mine, Michael Deubner from Germany, when the wall came down after we were there in Berlin, 6 months later, it came down. He sent me a bag of the rocks from the Berlin Wall. So it's just coincidental, really cool stuff. So I cherish the experiences that I had as a competitor. I never cared about winning. I don't have the eye of the tiger. I care about learning. My brother is more eye of the tiger kind of guy. I've seen him come from behind and just grind it and win matches that are amazing. It wasn't that important to me. I just wanted the experience. I wasn't so interested in the title.
Hmm. Interesting. Very cool. Well, it's fun to hear these stories, and especially for those of you watching, in the martial arts industry, in the martial arts world. By the way, if you have any questions and you're watching right now, please drop us any questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Graydon, or you'd like me to ask him. Any stories you want to hear, any questions you have, just drop them in the comments below. You started talking about publishing stories, but you have published other works. Talk about some of the things that you have written and that you've published.
In 1984, I wrote a book called Black Belt Management: The Guide to Success Without Selling Out. At the time, there was no you could it was self-published, but it wasn't like today. So I could send it off and have it bound in a perfect bound, which is a typical book. This is a perfect bound book. That's the binding right there.
Hmm.
So instead, I printed it as 8.5 by 11 sheets and put it into a 3-ring binder. Now it was a manual, so I could sell this version for $10. I could sell the manual for $149. Thank you very much. I sold about 3,000 at $149. It was the first book of its time, a kind, and it really impacted a lot of people. I can remember being in California, selling out so quickly that I had 2 big boxes overnighted, which cost a mint, to get out there because I knew there was more to be sold. That led to the creation of the National Association of Professional Martial Artists, NAPMA. I created that in 1993. I was at an event in Las Vegas, and the leaders of the event, it was a big billing company kind of arrangement of 150 school owners in the room. And the owner of it came up to me and handed me a card that said, John Graydon, President, National Association of Professional Martial Arts. He goes, John, you're the only person that can do this. And I took the card and bang, NAPMA was a massive success. Within 3 years, we were doing over $3 million a year, holding massive conferences. And it all came tumbling down when I wrote an editorial that said that the martial arts uniform is the ugliest fitness apparel ever. That didn't go well with the suppliers, and they started to sue me and sue me and sue me and sue me, and to the point where my attorneys had never seen a more aggressive attack. They called it pathological. And what that means is that every week or so, somebody would be knocking on my door or ringing my doorbell. John Graydon. And they would serve me with something else. Interrogatories. What interrogatory is a demand for discovery. You've got to go back and get all these files. The idea is to keep you so buried in the lawsuit that you can't conduct your own business because there's a deadline coming at the next appointment or the next appearance in court. You have to provide all this stuff. And it was for 3 years. I really actually had a doctor tell me that I was suffering from PSTD because when the doorbell rings or someone knocks at my front door, I immediately cringe. I can't help it. It was sick. So that's what happened there. But with that, I also created the Martial Arts Professional Magazine. That was the first trade journal for the martial arts industry. Full color, 26,000 subscribers, free of charge every single month. And then that led to the martial arts instructor certification program, which was a massive hit because nobody had ever done it this way before. Most martial arts styles, like ATA and all that, they have instructor certification that's based upon the curriculum, that particular style. This had nothing to do with styles. This was designed by me using 18 different professionals that were academics in the fields of kinesiology, child psychology, communication experts, motivational experts. Brian Tracy was one of them, in fact, where they were all experts in these fields, but they were also black belts and had a background in instruction. So they understood and they could calibrate their academic world to what our needs were. And that became the martial arts teachers certification program at matacertification.com. So that's going to this day. And it's, again, because you've earned your black belt typically doesn't mean that you've been taught how to teach. Most of us mimic our instructors. We don't really have a formula to teach a class and retain students. For instance, the two most dangerous words. I love Jeopardy. So a few years ago, one of the clues on Jeopardy was, according to Japanese sociologists, there are two words that are damaging the American population and society. What are those two words? Guess what those two words were, Jason? What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Damaging. Good job.
Hmm.
Good job. Count how many times an instructor says good job in the course of one class. If no matter what you do is a good job, when does it really become a compliment? When does it really become sincere? Awesome. God is awesome. Nature is awesome. Niagara Falls are awesome. That kick was not awesome. So now we move into tags that undermine authority. One of the tags, common tag, in fact, I fired one of my instructors because he never stopped doing this, is okay. All right, everybody line up, okay? Get a fighting stance, okay? Okay, we're going to do it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not asking your permission if it's okay. That undermines your authority. You know what I mean? That's a tag. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You got me? Joe Lewis's tag was make sense. Does that make sense? Make sense? Make sense? And he was a great instructor. I'm not anyway dissing him at all. But tags are very common, and you're so used to them you don't recognize them unless somebody kind of points it out. Here's another lesson from the MATA certification program. Which is better? If I ask a specific student, Jason, is the side kick a straight line kick or a circular kick? Or if I ask the entire class, which is the best route?
I would ask a specific person.
Okay. If you ask the specific person, the rest of the class goes, ah. If you throw it to the class, they're all thinking about it. Is he going to call? You see the difference? That's a big difference. Now, unless the child needs to be called out to wake them up a little bit, sometimes that's the situation. But when you ask the class the question, they all start thinking about it, and when you give the answer, they absorb the answer more so than if your focus is on Joey over here and Sally over there is looking at herself in the mirror. And to tag myself, makes sense? Okay, so the last part I'll talk about the certification is how to teach sparring so students don't quit. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I have, where you're someplace like in the mall and you see an ex-student walking by and she sees that you see her and she kind of looks away, but she can't escape it. Did you see her? Sally, how have you been? Boy, we sure missed you in class. And she goes, yeah, Mr. Graydon, I've been very busy lately, and I just, I've got a new job or whatever it is. Okay, all right. So if we could have a truth translator that would just lower from the sky, it come, and it would say, it would translate for Sally. I made orange belt, and you put me in front of that guy to spar with. I had no idea what I was doing, and he punched me in the nose. My eyes started watering, and I knew at that point I'm done. So the program teaches a series of limited sparring drills and phases for sparring where students really enjoy sparring rather than scared about sparring. And that usually comes from, I teach often at a school locally. It's a Taekwondo school. They don't allow punches to the face when they spar. How can you? I can't fathom that. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a matter of teaching it safely so they're not smashing each other in the head.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where the MATA certification program is. A lot of stuff that simply are not taught unless you seek out the professionals, or there's no other course like it. Simple as that. It's matacertification.com. So I'm very proud of that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and I mean, I feel like I just got an education myself and a couple good reminders. I love that you mentioned about the good job, because I've heard instructors do that a million times, and just like you said, every time you hear good job, when does good job really mean good job? When is it really a compliment? When is it something that's actually empowering versus just a space filler? Really is what it becomes.
Well, here's a question for our audience. What's the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem? They throw the words around a lot. What's the difference?
Well, to
And the
me,
meaning.
self-esteem would be how you feel about yourself, and confidence tells you that you understand a skill and can perform it
Confidence
well.
is you have the confidence to give it your best and hang in there, that you think you can be good at it. That's exactly right. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. It's completely internal, and they're not necessarily related. But martial arts instructors just throw them both around. Oh, well, this is really good for self-esteem. What's self-esteem? Well, it's
Mm,
confidence. No, it's not. They're completely different. Do you know who created the self-esteem concept by chance?
I don't.
Dr. Nathaniel Brandon, who was a mentor of my instructor, Joe Lewis. He wrote the book, The Six Pillars of Self-Defense, Self-Esteem, in I think 1969.
Hmm.
And Joe Lewis and he were tight, and Joe told me many, many stories about Dr. Nathaniel Brandon. So to me, it's mind blowing that I spent so much. I spent half of Joe Lewis's life with him as his student partner. Uh, I published books for him. We went around the world, all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff. My first karate school. I'm sorry. First night going to karate class, the class I described earlier. My dad pulled to get some gas. I convinced him to buy the karate magazine on the shelf, professional karate magazine. He
Hmm.
did. So I've got it. I'm in the car. I'm driving. I turn it over, and on the back of the magazine was the classic Joe Lewis jump sidekick.
Hmm.
Muscles, the foot's bladed. He's Hollywood. I mean, it just blew my mind. I'd never seen this is much better than Batman or Superman. This is a real superhero. This is everything that martial arts can be to me. And lo and behold, 10 years later, he moves to the area and takes me on as his personal training partner. Mind blowing. I mean, I've had a most amazing career, most of it from proximity. It just happened to be the right area to move to. My father was in the military,
Hmm.
and he was given a choice. You can be transferred either to Huntsville, Alabama, or Tampa Bay, Florida. He chose Tampa Bay,
Tough
Florida.
choice.
And I asked him one day, why? He goes, because there's more bridge players in Tampa Bay.
Uh, yeah, that's crazy. Hey, let's take a break from that for just a second. I don't know if you can see this question on the screen here, but there's someone out here on Facebook, and I apologize that I can't see your name. But it says, "Hi from Colorado. How do you motivate your student competitors to adopt that appreciation of learning when you don't necessarily have that eye of the tiger yourself?"
You have to take the lens off of you and put it onto your student. You're in a different world now. If you're accepting the role of instructor, you have to be an instructor. And when you teach for a long time, there's going to be times when it's just rote, boring as can be. But a professional works through that because the lasting impact you can have on that student is far more important than how you feel right now. Take the feelings out of it and be a professional. I always felt that I always wanted to be an athlete or a teacher, and martial arts has provided me the opportunity to do both. You're reaching a burnout point, either kind of change the formula or, look for something that might motivate you more. But when it comes to competition, you have to ask yourself, is this really worth the effort? Is it worth the effort? So Taekwondo, somebody just described to me a tournament where they only have 3 competitors in each division, so each student can get a trophy. Blown away.
Welcome to 2020.
If you are, yeah, right. If you are training students for tournaments that are developing bad habits, like point karate, terrible habits. Here's the most neglected move in all martial arts. Ready? Are you ready? You want to see this? Okay, you ready? Okay, here it is. Ready? That's the most neglected move in martial arts. Point fighters, watch them throw their punches. It'll go out and it'll just drop. And then it'll work its way back. But it doesn't come back to a defensive position. It's not that. So it is motivational. It robs you of motivation, either consciously or unconsciously, when you're teaching bad habits to students in order for them to win a trophy. That's really important. Kickboxing is far more realistic. MMA is a lot more, but that's just, I don't have any interest in doing that. I don't think I ever did. I wish I would have learned how to grapple. Joe Louis always said he was a better grappler than he was a martial artist. I think the best way to fight me is to tackle me. Then I'm in big trouble, especially if I'm trying to block you with this. So I hope that helps.
Perfect. Well, thanks for answering that, and thank you for asking the question out there. If you guys are still watching, please drop any other questions. And Mr. Graydon, I don't know if you saw this, but I just want to pop it back up on there. But Stefan said that you were an inspiration to support pro martial arts schools in Germany. So just putting that up
Thank
there.
you very much. I love my time in Germany.
So, question for you: what would you say it has been your biggest challenge in getting your message out to the audience that you're trying to reach?
A deep rooted belief that the traditional way is the only way. The lack of an open mind. Martial arts, specifically traditional martial arts, does not encourage, in fact, it discourages free thinking that may challenge the norm. Does it make any sense to aim a punch, step forward, throw a punch, and then hold it out? Go on YouTube and look for street fights. You'll never see anything like it. They say, you have to ask the question, why are we doing this? How does that help? When does an attacker step back, aim, and step to you and punch and hold the punch out? And you say, well, we want to be able to practice our defense. Your defense wouldn't work against a real punch because the real punch lasts about a fraction of a second. What's more important is for you to understand, for instance, pre-attack indicators. What is a pre-attack indicator? You might consciously know that, okay, well, pre-attack indicator is something the person does that indicates they're going to attack. Okay, I'll buy that. Give me an example. Teach it to your class tonight. Could you do that? Some of you could. Most of you couldn't. A pre-attack indicator in traditional martial arts is stepping back, downward blocking, and yelling before you step forward and throw your punch in one step. How does that translate to reality? That's not a pre-attack indicator. That is insanity. Speaking of insanity, when I was an orange belt, I learned Tongun. That was the first. We had the square block, right? you're blocking this guy from this angle, and you're blocking this guy from this angle. And I was in my living room as a kid, 14, super enthused karate guy. I'm flying high. And my dad and his buddy are sitting at the table drinking beers and smoking cigarettes. And dad says, Johnny, why don't you show Ralph here some of your karate? So I did the Tongoon thing, step by step, and I explained every move just like my instructor explained it to me. And when I was done, the guy, Ralph, turned to my dad and said, that looks like a bunch of bullshit to me. And I was like that, right? So fast forward 10 years. I'm in Dallas, Texas at the Cooper Institute of Aerobic Training because they were the ones that immediately adopted the certification program and taught it through their courses in their catalog. And Dr. Cooper was the man who coined the word aerobics. This is a big time facility. So I'm there to teach the Martial Arts Teachers Association certification program. But before that, I'm on a Stairmaster or elliptical in the gym, and there's a floor in front of us, and then a class starts, and the adult green belts come out, and the instructor comes out, and they start doing the same form. And then they go to the square block, and he explains it exactly how it was taught to me, exactly how I taught it to my students. You've got somebody coming from this side and you're blocking them, and somebody come on this side and you're blocking them, and you're blocking them both at the same time. And I looked at that from the perspective of being outside the class looking in, and I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I never taught another kata again. Never. It was, but because
So
it's
how
the
do you?
black.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How do you respond to, with extreme martial arts being, more popular in the tournament scene, as far as a performance art? How do you respond to, kata and forms fitting into that category? Because, I'll agree 100% that I think that forms have absolutely nothing to do with self-defense. As a matter of fact, we do teach a traditional Tong Sudo system, but we also teach Krav Maga. So Krav Maga to me is the more realistic self-defense for our school. But the Tong Sudo is, the forms and the kata and the, extreme martial arts kicks, tricks, and everything is I would liken it to dance or gymnastics or anything else that it's an activity, it's a sport, it's an art. It shouldn't be confused with self-defense. How do you respond to that?
Well, first off, it is confused with self-defense. People advertise self-defense, and all they do is Shotokan. All they do is Weichiru. So yeah, it's. I have done videos that compared kata to the dance scenes in West Side Story. If you watch the documentary "Be Like Water" about Bruce Lee, which is I think a terrible documentary, but they make the same correlation between kata and Brezhnev doing ballet back in the 70s and 80s. The thing is, here's the difference. There's just a huge gap here. If I sign my child up at a dance school to learn, say, for instance, ballet, I get what I signed up for. If I enroll my students my kids in a gymnastics school, I get what I signed up for. I enroll my kids into a martial arts school. There's a lot of bait and switch. Tons of it. It's not authentic. It's not honest.
And you're saying that as a generalization across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my mission forever. I think that we should give our students. We live in a world of instant value, and I'm not saying water things down at all. I'm saying set aside all the time that you spend doing this I mean, it's an art form. I understand that. If you're going to advertise it and market it as an art form, learn the art of Shotokan. That's a beautiful art. It's great for bilateral coordination because you've got to do everything on the left side, the same as the right side. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, provided that you understand that you're trying to pass that off as being self-defense. One step sparring as self-defense, pre-rehearsed self-defense as self-defense. So there's a massive gap there. Here's what most classes are like. The first half of the class is spent, all right, we'll do a down. So you do down block, punch, punch, punch until you get to the mirrors. Then you turn in downward block and it's punch, punch, punch. Get to the other side, turn around, Then you go to rising block. Then you go to forearm block. Then you go to side block. Then you go to so you go up the floor and back to floor. And then here are the corrections. Throw that punch. Okay, good. Chin up, shoulders back. Get that punch in the center. Square off. All right. So all right, step and punch. There you go. Hold that punch out there. Pull that hand back to your hip. Get no deep stance. You need to be in a deep stance, so deep that your back leg, somebody could stand on that leg and it wouldn't break, wouldn't bend. So that's the first half of the class. Okay, everybody, gear up. Now we're going to do mitt work and we're going to spar. Like, turn your body sideways. Get your hands up. Get that chin down. Pull that hand back. Don't leave it out there. It's the exact contradiction of everything you just spent doing in class. So pick one. It makes it. Should it go? Like I said earlier, the most neglected move in all martial arts is that right there, because most martial arts tell you to pull it back to the hip, or they don't tell you to pull it back anywhere. So it's a contradiction, and it's not giving our students value. It's creating confusion, and it's not conscious confusion. It's subconscious confusion. And it's also physical confusion, because what physical habits do you want me to develop? This or this? Square shoulders or turn sideways? I mean, for empowered kickboxing, most people have the cross, downward block. That's the first block you learn, right? I used to teach it just like this. This is a defense against a front kick to the groin. You're going to cross your arms, step forward, and execute this downward block. And I imagine the guy going home to his wife and saying, "Honey, look what I learned. Kick me in the groin." So in empowered kickboxing, our first block is this. Watch, very, very complicated. That's it. Block number 2.
And let me ask you this: is it possible to be effective at both?
Time is our most precious gift, commodity, treasure. So why would you spend time on what is not going to save somebody, help somebody in a street fight or get attacked, or in sparring even? I mean, if you just spent the class doing sparring drills, here's an example. Sparring drill. Before I get to the sparring drills, let me ask this question. What kata teaches me reaction skills? What
None.
kata teaches me how to defend against a taller opponent? What kata teaches me how to defend or attack or deal with a counter fighter? What kata teaches me how to defend against someone who is trying to tackle me? What kata?
So
How many
your
times have
biggest
I seen in a street fight a double punch
to
or a
me,
double body punch?
let's move on from this in a second, but to me it sounds like forms or kata being passed off as self-defense is your biggest challenge, or just kind of your biggest issue altogether. But if students are learning proper self-defense and learning proper sparring techniques, do you have do you still have an issue with forms being taught in schools?
We live in America, and you can run your business any way you want. I like to provide my students with as much value as possible. They can receive all the value of kata with more practical applications. If you're doing drills like I step in and jab, my job is to step in and jab you in the shoulder. Your job is to move in good balance. So you're using position movement as a defense. That's a fun sparring drill. I get more out of that than I would spending time doing this. And people say, well, traditional martial arts teaches discipline and all that kind of stuff. Dance teaches discipline. If you go to the first tee, the PGA first tee, that whole program is all about life skills, because golf requires honesty and all that kind of
Hmm.
good stuff. So we don't have the market on honesty. In fact, we don't, because so much of our marketing is deceptive. It is really but it's that going back to that dogma thing where you're just repeating what you learned. It's not because you are again, martial arts discourages free thinking, discourages really deep thought and analysis rather.
Well,
So
I would agree. I would agree with that as well. I see, definitely see both sides. I see that a lot of people do, what they've been taught and what they've always done. This is the way we've always done it is a common thing that's said, and hopefully more schools are open more open thinking, more adopting more, Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, different methods of self defense. And I think that every student comes to martial arts for a different reason too, and everybody has a different view of it. And it's up to us to, like you said, give them what they want, but also give them what they need. I think what they need is good solid self defense. So the last thing I want to go over is just your training regimen. What are you doing now versus what you did 20, 30, 40 years ago to stay active?
I run virtually 5 days a week at noon in Florida. Today it was 97 degrees. I run a mile to a hill that's about almost a full story, and I run. It takes 6 minutes to get to the hill. I sprint up and down 10 times, and then I run back. So it's about a 30-minute run. In and typically I have a sweatshirt on, and I still do some bag work. Beyond that, and lifting weights, but I haven't sparred in a long time. I mean, I don't have anybody to spar with really, and my brothers are too dangerous to spar. So I'm still training hard.
And how does that compare? Let's go back when you were in your competition days. What was your training regimen then?
I was blessed. I was so blessed. When Joe Louis moved to town in 1984, that's when we started training 2, 3 times a week. And much of that was spent in the St. Pete Boxing Club, which did not have an air conditioner, and the ring was 12 by 12. And I have videos of him just beating the snot out of me. I mean, the worst beatings I've ever taken. And I loved it. The only reason I didn't fall down is because he kept hitting me. So yeah, it was very much sparring oriented. And here's an aha moment that's important, and it ties into what we've been talking about. At that same time, Mike Anderson, the guy who created really full contact karate with the Professional Karate Association, and then the first big world championships on ABC in 1974. He was local. He was a friend of mine. He still is today. I'm going to go see him next week. But he had a Rick Mandris, who was Angelo Dundee's top coach, and Angelo Dundee is the trainer to Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali. So he set up for Rick Mandris to meet my brother Jim and I at the karate school to kind of work with us a little bit. So first thing Rick says is, "Okay, let me see you do your stuff. You guys do some shadow boxing." And we were moving around we had great form. Our chin was up, and we threw our punches, and they were vertical punches because that way it gets through the guard more. The kind of silly garbage we were taught. Hoo, hoo, hoo. And the hand never comes back to here. It just does. It comes back a little bit, and then it drops. That's a karate punch. He started laughing. He says, "You guys punched like karate guys," and we thought that was a compliment. It wasn't. He taught us how to snap a punch, how to snap it and bring it back. It's like you take a wet towel, and you're snapping it at your buddy. That's snapping a punch. And as soon as it happened, and I was sparring with people, and they would drop. I mean, the velocity that you could create by snapping a punch instead of pushing it like a karate guy is a tremendous night and day difference. So that was one of the huge aha indicators for me.
Awesome.
Coming from the top, frankly.
Very cool. Well, listen, we're near the end of our time today, and we've had several comments. Thank you guys for watching and just checking in. If you have any last minute questions, you want to just drop in the comments for Mr. Graydon, that would be excellent. What do you see is what do you see in your near future? What are your goals? What are things that you're working on now? I know we talked about the Teachers Association, but
Yeah,
anything else you want to add?
I am wrapping up my book, Choose Your Battles Wisely. And it is pretty much a chronology of my career and the good decisions and the bad decisions that I've made. The goal of for the goal for me for the reader is to kind of take them back through some of the best decisions that I made and some of the worst decisions that I made, and the decisions, the knee jerk decisions that end up making me the jerk. So, in short, I've learned to choose my battles wisely, and that's the message that I want to convey. And it's ideal for high school and college age students. So, my goal is to start marketing to that particular segment in colleges and high schools, and start doing speaking on uh, a wider audience and a wider stage than just the martial arts, which is a shrinking stage.
All right. Well, Stefan wants to know when he can meet you in Germany again. He
I
wants you to come
can't
back.
wait to get over there. If I'll grab my wife, we'll be on a plane next week. Thank you,
Awesome.
Stefan.
All right. Well, hey, listen, Mr. Graydon, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for, just all your experience and sharing your stories and giving us, your perspective on martial arts and in life in general. Just appreciate having you on the show and hope you enjoyed being here.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, have a great day and go get a good run in.
Yahoo.
All right. Take care. We'll talk soon.